What's up YouTube? My name is Wyatt and today we are going to be talking about the Sigma 16mm F1.4 for YouTube. Now this lens has been around for quite some time for a couple of different lens mounts. I'll put those down below here so that way you guys can see. I don't know them off the top of my head, but basically it is a wide angle lens with a low aperture for APS-C size sensors. So if you do own a full frame camera, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use this lens. There is a ton of videos out there on this lens, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about specific specs, but more focusing on the usage of this lens for YouTube videos. So in a YouTube video, typically you're going to be doing a handful of different things. You're not really going to be focused on one thing. This all does, of course, depend on the type of channel that you have, but I'm going to try to touch base on most of the things that you would be doing on YouTube. The first thing that you would be doing is going to be the most common one, which is a talking headshot just like this one. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos in the past, every single video on this channel is actually shot with this Sigma 16mm. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what talking headshots look like. I personally think that this lens does a good job for talking headshots. I like the field of view. Now keep in mind, we are shooting on an APS-C size sensor. So even though the lens is technically a 16mm, you're getting more like a 24mm equivalent if you're talking about full frame. I think this lens is wide enough to where you get a decent amount in the background without showing too much, especially if you're shooting in a smaller room. It's going to make your room look big. I mean, my setup here, this whole area background is very, very small. We're in a tight space, but it feels bigger than what it actually is because of the wider angle. Also, I've heard a few YouTubers say this, you probably have as well, but whenever you're using a wider angle lens for something like YouTube, you feel like you are a lot more connected with the viewer. The reason this is something to do with the fact that since this is a wide angle lens, I'm able to get closer. I'm only about an arm's length away from the camera right now. Whereas if I was using a 50mm lens, then I would be probably a good 5 to 6 feet at least to get this same type of framing. And even though I would be the same size in the frame, my background is going to be condensed down a lot more. The second thing, and probably the most common use for this lens, is vlogging. And we can't really test that out inside, so let's take this outside. So here we are. We are out here at the park testing out the Sigma 16mm lens for vlogging, and this is just kind of like a typical vlogging scenario. I have the camera at arm's length away from me, and this is the field of view that you're going to get when using this lens. Now, it's not the widest possible lens. Typically with vlogging, you want a wider lens so that way you can see the surrounding area around you, but if I do a quick turnaround here, you can see there's enough information in the shot to realize where I'm at, and I'm not like super close up in the frame. So it's not the absolute best lens for vlogging. The other issue that I have with this lens for vlogging is the fact that it's not image stabilized. So you have to use the digital image stabilization on the Canon M50, and if you also have that in other cameras, you can use that as well. Cameras like the Sony cameras have in-body image stabilization, so it's a little bit better on those cameras. But with this camera specifically, I have to use the digital image stabilization, which crops in on my frame just a little bit, which makes it difficult whenever you're already shooting at a somewhat cropped in field of view, you know, comparative to what other vlogging lenses offer. Also, just on a quick side note, if you do need to have a couple people in your shot, this lens is wide enough to get one, maybe two more people in the shot. Right now autofocus is having a hard time picking them up, and there we go. But yeah, it's not the widest lens out there, but it will get the job done if you do need to fit multiple people into your shot. And lastly, the most common thing that comes to my mind whenever I think of making YouTube videos is going to be B-roll. Now, B-roll is a funny term because whenever you say B-roll, a lot of people think this cinematic style of B-roll and tight angles and stuff like that. But B-roll is literally anything that you put over your A-roll. So me talking to you guys, or whenever I was vlogging, that's all your A-roll. B-roll is whenever you have something over the top of your talking head segment. So it doesn't have to be super cinematic. It can literally just be something like this. See, you still hear me talking and you hear my voice, but you're not seeing the A-roll, you're seeing something else. So this is technically B-roll, even though it's not super cinematic. I think you can get some pretty good B-roll, even if you do want to do something more cinematic. This lens has a really close focusing distance, so you can get up close, get a nice blurry background if that's what you are going for. Of course, you are going to get different looks if you compare this to like a 50mm or even an 85 or anything longer than that. It is going to look a little bit different, but I think this does the job just fine. So yeah, overall, let me know, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is a good lens for YouTube? Do you own this lens? What are your opinions of it? I personally love this lens. I mean, for me, it does everything I need it to do with some minor inconveniences, but it gives me a pretty solid talking headshot. I am able to vlog with it if I need to, and the B-roll that I can get with this is really decent. I mean, it's not the best B-roll lens. I do like looks of something like a 50mm can give you. It's just a different look, so it's not that this lens can't do B-roll. It's just a different style than what you might get out of a longer focal length. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel grow. I appreciate all the support that you guys have shown over the last couple weeks. It really has been amazing to me to watch the channel grow the way it has. I think over the last 2 weeks, we've went up like 13, 14 subscribers. That's just awesome. I really do appreciate all the support. Again, if you guys enjoyed it, leave it a like. If not, oh well, YouTube. Until the next one, I'll see you later.